So as I mentioned yesterday, that really wasn't how I wanted to start this channel off. But I felt the situation was so bad it had to be spoken about, and I just hope it's one of these things that we keep talking about going forward and it doesn't get forgotten about after a few weeks. At some point, one of these incidents needs to become almost a poster boy for change and what pollution can do to our waterways, and I just hope it's this one and not a 10 down the line. But yeah, with everything that's just gone on, it's very easy to forget that we are only 4 weeks out from the new river season. And what I really wanted this channel to become is, obviously there's going to be some fishing in it, there's going to be fish, hope, you know, some big fish, things like that. But the main thing that I really want to do is to talk about the different techniques, the different baits, the tackle that we use and things like that, and really go in depth with certain things. And we have at that point in the season now where I am starting to replenish my tackle boxes, getting ready for the new season. And one video that I've wanted to do for quite a long time, and I've just never really got round to it, is one on chatterbaits or bladed jigs. More specifically, the Gunki Boomer, the tiny boomer in 5 gram. This has become such a big part of my fishing the last couple of seasons. It is accounted for probably more fish over £3 than any other bait that I've used through the warmer months. You know, it is that good. This is what they look like out of the box. And where is it? This one is one from last season after just a few weeks. Absolutely scratched to bits. The skirts fell off. It just got absolutely hammered, and this was literally in the space of 2 to 3 weeks. I caught so many perch and pike on this, it was crazy, and some really good fish as well. So what we're going to look at is what is a bladed jig, where to use them, what tackle to throw them on, what trailers to use, and how to actually fish them. Now, we'll start off with the obvious one, is what is a bladed jig. Now, effectively, all it is a swim jig with a blade on the front. And when you start to retrieve, the blade will stand up on the front like that, and it will move from side to side, and it almost looks like it's waving. Now, these give off an incredible amount of vibration, and I have filmed these underwater, and these actually give off more noise than certain crankbaits with rattles in that I use. So the fish know these are there, that's for sure. So where will I throw these? I will use these in pretty much the same conditions, the same situations as I would a crankbait. But the one difference being is round where I fish a lot, there is so much weed. Bottom weed, surface weed, just everything that you can imagine. Crankbaits just do not perform well in them sort of situations. It's not the kind of weed that when you start to feel it fouling up, you can just pull it free. They just literally get, sometimes you bring in a crankbait and it's just a ball of weed when you bring it back in. These are where I'll use that. And because you've effectively got this massive weed guard up here at the front, you can throw these in literally massive lily pad beds and this will still work its way free. Now, when it comes to tackle that I throw these on, I use a more moderate rod now than an extra fast. When I first started using these, I was using an extra fast rod, and what I found is the fish that I was landing was all hooked very, very close to the lip, and I was getting a lot of hits where the fish would be on for literally a few seconds and then it'd be off again. And you've got, what you have to remember with a bladed jig, a bit like a crankbait, these are constantly moving forward. So when a fish comes up from behind to hit it, if you're using a really fast rod, the second that that fish bites and you feel it, you go to set the hook. Now, because this is still moving, you are hooking a lot of fish in the lip, and you're skin hooking a lot. So as soon as that fish shakes its head, it's pulling free and you're losing a lot of fish. Now, with a moderate action rod, you're just sort of delaying everything a split second. So when you feel that hit and then you go to set the hook, this lure should be ever so slightly further back in the fish's mouth. So, and I noticed that straight away. As soon as I switched over to switch rods, now I've done a lot of experimentation with different rods and so on, and almost a crankbait rod is what I would use now for these. And every fish now that I hook, they all tend to be just behind the lip or ever so slightly back in the mouth. So that is one tip that I will give you, that if you are getting lots of bites but you're rarely hooking up with a fish, or you feel the fish for a few seconds and it's gone, it's probably that the rod that you're using might just be a little bit too quick. So it's just a little tip there. as I learned the hard way, because I lost quite a few good fish. A couple of times I'd actually seen a perch hit it at my feet. There's a few of those that were really big fish, and again, one head shake and it's gone, and that again is just down to my fault, that using the wrong tackle. But I will throw these on straight fluorocarbon. You can use braid to leader if you want. I've now used fluorocarbon for all of my fishing except top water. So yeah, it's personal preference, I think, that one. But we can look at braid against fluorocarbon, pros and cons about that, like maybe in a future video. I will always use a wire trace because these are absolute pike magnets. But yeah, it's I think when you're getting a setup together to use with chatterbaits, just be aware that if the rod that you're using is a little bit quick, and especially if you're using braid and an extra fast rod, you've got no stretch there whatsoever, you've got an incredibly quick rod, you will probably miss quite a few bites. So it's just something to bear in mind if you do find yourself in that situation. Now, when it comes to trailers, you can throw them bare if you're trying to scale down. That works really well. My personal favourite is, if anybody that's follows me on social media will know already, is the Gunki Peps. Now, this will be my go-to all the time, and it's the one that I've probably caught 80% of the fish I've caught on this bait has been with that as a trailer. Now, when I rig these on, I will always rig them upside down. Might sound a little bit strange, but the reason being is this blade moves so much water that if I was to rig this on the correct way round, the tail just doesn't work as fast as what it should do, so it doesn't match the blade very well. Now, if I rig that upside down, because all the water that's moving is above, that tail will work exactly as it should do, and it will match the blade much better, and it makes it look like one compact unit rather than two separate things put together. So again, it's just something that I like to do, and every fish that I've ever caught on a Peps as a trailer on a boomer, it has always been rigged upside down. Now, if you look at the profile of the Peps, it's quite a flat-sided bait, and you get this really nice side-to-side action with it as well. I have used more bulbous style shads on it, things like the bumpies, things like that work really well, but again, you get a slightly different action. It's more in the tail with a little bit less side-to-side. So I guess another reason why the Peps is my favourite. So that is what I would use for pretty much like all of my fishing on a bladed jig. Will always start with that. That's my sort of starting point. Now, if I'm trying to kill the action a little bit, if the fish are being a bit finicky, or the fish are being a bit pressured at that point, which we get quite a lot in certain areas in the summer, what I like to do is still throw the boomer, but I like to put something on it that's just going to subtle it down a little bit. It's not going to be quite as in your face. And then the three that I like to use, that, believe it or not, is the skip worm. You just get this slight movement from the back end of it, a slight side to side. That can work really well if you're trying to sort of kill the action a little bit. Another really good one are the mosquitoes, which is like a pintail, and the kind of action you get with these is basically that you get a real quick side to side action, sort of more towards the tail. And then again, if I want to kill it even further, I'll go into something like a Gunki kiddie. It's got like the fork tail, but again, that will move from side to side, just not quite as much as a mosquito. So there are three other trailer options that work pretty well if you're trying to scale it down a little bit in regards to the action. Another really good one is something like a boogie craw. Now, creature baits as trailers, if you're trying to create the maximum amount of vibration in the water, that can be really good because you've got the two arms moving up and down like a bit like somebody swimming. Works really well. But where I will use a creature bait is if I'm fishing in an area where there's lots of overhanging trees and there may be submerged branches as well, is that's when I'll use it. And the reason being, if you take this one with a Peps on and we're bringing this over a branch, what can happen is it can fall to the side and your hook point is going to dig into the wood, the branches, whatever you may be fishing on, and you can snag and lose quite a few of these. Now, if you just a simple change by going onto like a creature style bait, as you're coming over that same branch, because these are so flat, it will just come over like that and it will not fall to the side, so you will not hook the branch. So that can be really good if you're fishing snaggy areas. So again, something like a boogie crawl works really well. So as far as trailers go, they're the ones that I would use, or again, just use it naked. One other little tip, if I am using like shad style baits, I will trim the skirt down, so the skirt itself will finish. Let me just put this one back on. So I want the skirt to finish where the body of the shad finishes. So if you look at that, the skirts, apart from there's a couple of little long bits there, but the bulk of it sort of ends where the body does. So when that's coming through, even though that looks a little bit leery like that, when that's coming through the water, all this will push back alongside the bait, and you get like a shimmer. That's what the skirt is effectively creating. It's bulking it out a little bit, but it will create like a shimmer in the water. So I don't want the skirt to come any further than where the body ends. So you've got the shimmer from the body, the vibration from the blade, and you've got the tail going as well. So I just want it all to look like a nice compact unit. So when it comes to retrieves, they're all very easy. If you just want to go out and have fun fishing, the chatterbait is an amazing one to use in the warmer conditions, because they are literally chuck it out and reel it in. You can catch on just doing that. That is obviously the easy one. Cast it out and just reel it in. If you're keeping it up in the water, going over the fish's head, it can be really good for pike. Another one that I've done really well on when it comes to the perch is what we call slow rolling, where you cast it out, you let it sink to the bottom, and you just start to retrieve just quick enough that you start to feel that blade moving, and you can sense the vibration in the rod tip. Keeping it within a foot of the bottom, that works really, really well, and I've caught a lot of fish doing that. Speeding up, slowing down, a little bit like what you would do with a crankbait. Sometimes it just pays varying it up a little bit. Don't get too robotic with it. And another really good one as well is just when you sort of pendulum it in. So you chuck it out, you let it sink to the bottom. You don't jerk the rod tip up, you just nice and slowly lift it. You'll feel the vibration again in the rod tip. As soon as you start feeling the vibration, kill the rod tip, lower it again a little bit, and then that will sink to the bottom. Blade will be going, the tail will be going, and then you just want to pendulum it all the way in. So yeah, there's pretty much the retrieves. They're not complicated, they're very easy to achieve. And the one other thing I think just worth mentioning as well is if you're fishing in very, very coloured water, or if you're fishing in the winter and everything that you're trying is just not working, something that I've started doing is to effectively turn your bladed jig into a Tokyo rig. So what I'll do is, on the boomers, on the 5 gram, you have another attachment point on the bottom, which is you can add extra weight to that. So if you're fishing very deep water, add some weight to it, chuck it out, it's going to bomb straight down to the bottom. When you start to retrieve, you're going to get exactly the same action, but with a much smaller profile bait. So if you want a smaller chatterbait but in deep water, this can be a really good one to go to. But by attaching a really thick piece of fluorocarbon, and I tie up the bottom like a crow's foot, with then a bullet weight just sliding freely on it. What I'm creating with that, so if you imagine I'm fishing in the winter, or I'm fishing coloured water, normally I would suggest always go as light as you possibly can when it comes to weight, but with this I go heavier, because I want to feel the blade moving, but I also want to know I'm in bottom contact as well. When that's coming along the bottom, the blade's going, the tail's going, you've got the shimmer, but you're also creating like a trail, like a smoke trail as you're coming along the bottom, as that's just starting to dig into the silt. That can work excellent in coloured water, but I've also started doing really well on this in the winter as well. If I'm on pike especially, if the pike are a little bit lethargic and you just want to go out and get a few bites, by doing this, by retrieving it nice and slow, again just quick enough to feel the vibration through the rod tip, you're in bottom contact all the time, you're creating that sort of smoke trail. You can get a surprising amount of reaction bites from fish that are absolutely covered in lice, completely inactive, but by doing this I've caught quite a few fish that I don't think I would have caught if I would have been fishing or more conventional winter techniques. And by tying the crow's foot on the bottom, what you are doing as well, if you hook a big fish but that gets stuck between rocks, with the appropriate amount of pressure, you're going to be able to pull that weight off the bottom of this without snagging it. And another thing, more importantly, if you do snap off with a fish, it's not going to be tethered to the bottom, so that's going to be able to pull off, and the fish is going to be able to swim away. So it's just putting a little bit more of a safety aspect into this sort of technique. So I think that's about it. That's most of the basics covered with chatterbaits. You could talk about this technique for, again, literally hours, but I think that's just a quick overview on I think probably the most important parts. Again, if you do something different to me, or you don't agree with something that I do, drop it in the comments, because I really want this channel to be a two-way thing where you can educate me if I'm doing something wrong, or you feel that I'm not doing something right as well. So that's what I want this channel to become. I want it to be a real sort of like an open communication. So if there is anything that you want to see going forward, like I say, we're not far away from the new river season now. I am planning on doing top water videos and videos on crankbaiting, things like that. But yeah, if you want anything in particular you want to see, just drop me a comment. I will only talk about things that I've done myself. I don't want to talk about things that I've only read about, because I think it's very important that if you are doing some kind of tutorial informational videos, you have some real world experience in what you're actually talking about, for obvious reasons. But I think that'll do for this one. And like I say, anything you want to see, just drop it in the comments, let me know. Cheers.